Hello, this is Lana Lane, and this is Set the Record Straight. For those of you who have listened to my first debut, you know that this is based on anybody who has been wronged by the justice system to actually get a chance to have their say in my court, so to speak. I have posted in a few websites some invitations for people to come forward with their story. And I must say, I'm very pleased with the responses. And some of those are written, some are Skyped, and some are conferences. But for today, we're just going to focus on 3 of the written submissions that I have actually received between the last broadcast and this one. This one I call the cow pole incident. It says, I have 3 kids. 2 were taken for neglect through lack of supervision, which I had a problem, and I accept that. But I was told that if I went into therapy in 2 years, I could have a more favorable defense. So that's what I did. My son went to a foster placement where I got top marks in my care and how I looked after my son. But this wasn't good enough. My social worker didn't do her report for the first 3 months. Then she only saw me 4 times in the second 3 months and decided because I asked the health visitor to see if my son could have cowpole for 2 different symptoms that I wasn't able to care for him. And because she simply didn't know me, they let the placement drag on. I got more on edge. Still, my care never changed for my son. Later, a loan came through in my name. FCRS named themselves as guarantors, which I knew nothing about. The social worker didn't even ask me. She put up her hand as a means to shut me up, saying, I don't need your side of the story. I know already. I said that I didn't do it. And she called me a liar. With that, I shouted, what? So now my kids are going for something I didn't even do? She got real snippy with me. So finally I said, look, you useless fat piece of crap. I've done everything you told me to do. Who do you think you are talking to? I rang my solicitor in the middle of the argument and went into the garden to talk. They found me and kicked me out. I didn't even get to say goodbye to my children. Now they gave my son to his grandfather with his father living there in the house, even though they have major concerns with him. I read this story and I could actually picture everything that went down. When CSB had my children, I wanted to call them so many choice words, but I didn't. I wanted to raise my voice, I wanted to threaten them, I wanted to do all of this and that, but I knew that if I did that, they was going to attack anger management onto the many list of duties that I was supposed to do in order to get my children back. So I thank my participant for telling me this story. And they're all in my prayers. This one was interesting because I really wasn't sure whether or not I actually wanted to bring this to the forefront because I thought it was a little trivial. But then I saw the potential in it, and I'm going to tell you. It's called welfare discrimination based on race. It's about a woman who wrote to me and said, I have been wronged by the welfare system. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding? That's not what our show is about. But then the more I thought about it, I did say that I would take on any submission that had to do with being wronged by the judicial system, the justice system, or in this case, the government. So, she asked to remain anonymous for good reason. This is what she wrote. I've been on for years, but I can't work due to health issues. I have seizures daily, and my caseworker said white people don't belong on welfare and told my friend she hates me. She said that I'm trouble, and my kind is trouble too. She also said she was going to make me pay, and she did. She dropped my stamps down to $26 and made my spending allowance worth $290. No, went up from $290 to $980. What the heck? I don't get that much. Why hate me? I didn't ask to be born white. Yes, I said white. Her name is Carmela B. Clay. Also, the other one is Beatrice Page. Both hate white people, and that's bad. Yes, you can tell my story. Maybe it would help so many others so they won't have to deal with the same racist workers at welfare in Mahoning County in Youngstown, Ohio. Interesting twist, isn't it? Being the opposite of white, I've had faced discriminations, but I never would have guessed that white people have the same problem. This participant proved me wrong. Okay, this one I love because I could really relate to her. She gave me a long report that I'm going to read to you. And I titled this one, I Fought for My Kids in One. Well, I I've been fighting them since the day I was born. I was placed in foster care, then placed for adoption when I was a young child. When my son was born 6 years ago, they forced me to cooperate with them, saying that they would give me a chance if I only followed their guidelines and did what they said. Little did I know the corruption behind them, so I agreed. Home visits, random pop-ins, I did them all. House was always clean. Okay, I can't always say that, but pretty much. Anyway, house was always clean and my son always fed, dressed, and bathed. The relationship between my children's father was rocky and abusive, and after 6 months of marriage, sorry, for some reason I choked on that word. And after 6 months of marriage, I left. FACS kept coming around, and then I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, who was 5 now. Due to the circumstance of her conception, FACS stayed involved and used old medical reports to place me on medication I didn't need. I had been diagnosed in my early high school years as bipolar. It was a misdiagnosis that wasn't found out until way later on. And that misdiagnosis is what made me lose my kids to begin with. Just shy of my son's 3rd birthday, the children were apprehended from my care and placed in the care of my biological mother. Past reports of her parenting with me and my 4 younger siblings show clear signs that she was not fit to raise children. When I left my ex-husband, I moved in with her. Having no family to turn to because my adoptive family didn't want anything to do with me due to my pregnancies, I thought it was for the best. But little by little, after my daughter was born, my mother started playing her mind games. She tortured the crap out of me mentally and emotionally, pushing me over the edge. I was in school full-time and parenting 2 toddlers full-time on a daily basis. And on a daily basis, she told me how disappointed she was in me. Every day, she would tell me that my kids didn't need or love me. And one day, I took her word seriously, which was my biggest mistake, for I lost my babies to her that very day. I was taken by NRP to the Welland Hospital, where after I had overdosed on my medication. The police and doctors soon realized that my actions were not of my own doing and that someone had helped me go over the edge. For weeks, I couldn't even see or talk to my kids. I did everything FACS wanted and then some. I took parenting classes, therapy sessions, addiction counseling sessions, more parenting classes, and other life skills, and it still wasn't good enough. They made me homeless for almost 2 years, saying that if I went into a shelter, they would get me into housing and then the kids would come home. My kids lived in a kinship agreement with my biological mother for almost 3 years. And in those 3 years, she abused, neglected, and almost killed my kids. The more I complained, the worse it got. I was even given a restraining order, and visits were shut down for 2 months when I tried to protect my kids from her abuse. That was until a volunteer driver was told by the kinship home that they were known to place my kids in military-type discipline positions for over 30 minutes at a time. They would go days without being fed, and after years of documents and evidence presented, the children were finally removed from her home and placed into an emergency foster home until they could come home. I continued with my classes, the ones left to complete, and 6 months later, on December 21st, 2012, the kids were returned into my care. The file is still open, and they continue to harass me and my family with monthly visits and drop-ins, but they are home, safe where they belong. Now my job is to pick up the broken pieces and put them back together. I never had to go to court, not even once. I managed to fight them and get my kids back without a judge or lawyer by my side. My family and I are proof you can fight these guys and win. Now that was a fairy tale ending. Not to say that it didn't happen, because it happened with me, but so many other people, they lose their kids forever, because that's how long they string those cases along, forever. But personally, I say kudos to the woman who did this. She fought for her kids and she got them. I salute you. I wanted a little bit of time to talk to you about my personal experience. It started with my daughter back when she was about 2 years old. And I had just had my baby boy, and he was covered in hives from head to toe. He was barely a month old. And I took him to Children's Hospital. My mom and my daughter came with me. And when we got there, it was a madhouse. It really was. Kids was jumping off of furniture, slapping their parents, just all kinds of craziness that you know that if they were not there, they would not put up with. Well, the majority of them. And being me, thinking, okay, I'm 26 years old, I have, a little bit of parenting experience. Let me show them how it's really done. So, I was talking with some of the mothers that was around me, and my mother and I engaged in conversation with them while I was busy trying to rock my baby and try to get him to calm down. But he had so many hives on him. Later I found out he was allergic to fur, but right then we had no idea. I was confused. He was screaming. I mean, it was tension at its highest. So here I am, waiting in this crowded waiting room. And I look out the corner of my eye and I actually see my daughter push another kid to the ground. And I'm telling her, come here. She's talking about no. I'm like, come here. She's talking about no. I was like, okay, now you know if I come after you, you know what's up. Well, apparently She thought I was kidding. So I got up to go after her. I chased her around that waiting room. When I finally caught up to her, I yanked her up by one arm and started patting that bottom with the other. So I'm done disciplining her in front of all these witnesses. And I sit her down in the seat next to my mother. And we just resumed with the conversation that we had. Anyway, I guess we weren't paying her enough attention. And she started jumping up like she about to fight one of us and talking about something. Leave me alone! My kid said that out of the blue. I'm thinking, does she understand what kind of tension I'm under right now? Apparently not. So I calmly took my baby, asked my mother to hold him for me, while I went outside to cool down. This was January. And if you know January in Ohio, walking outside with no coat on is a dumb move. But she made me so mad that my temperature actually got hot in my body. And nobody knows this because nobody else was out there. But I went out there and prayed. I was like, Lord, take this anger away from me because I'm so mad I can bust hell wide open. So he must have done it because 2 minutes later I was freezing. So I went back into the lobby of the hospital. I took the baby back. I turned around and looked at my daughter and I said, don't say another thing to me tonight. Now, due to all of that, the crowdedness of the emergency room still hadn't changed. It was still that busy. We should have been like the very last on the list. You know, they called me next. And like a fool, I was happy. Ha ha, we got called back next, you know. I can go home and do whatever it is I want to do. And I didn't know it, but they sent the social worker out there to the lobby where my mother was. Next thing I knew, CSB was at my door. And the first time they missed me because I wasn't there. The next time they caught me. My daughter was at school or whatever, and the baby was asleep. She went and took a quick look around. My house was not immaculate, but it wasn't completely destroyed either. I'm sure she looked at that, but the main thing that she focused on was my kitchen. She looked in the cabinets, saw food particularly spilling out of them. She saw the freezer, she saw that it was packed. She looked in the refrigerator, saw that, everything in there was cold and current. She said it looks good. I just got to come out here one more time to actually see the child in action with you. She came out. My daughter was on her best behavior. Okay, I must admit, so was I. And, the weird part about it was, she felt so comfortable in our environment that she didn't even want to leave it. So imagine my shock when several years later they decided to take my kids anyway. I will tell you more about that at a later time. But unfortunately, we have run out of time for this week. This has been Set the Record Straight with Elena Lane. Music by C-Max Productions. Director R1. Editing by Curly Washington and Elena Lane. And this has been an R1 production. And I want to say thanks to all my participants. This is Elena Lane saying, God bless.